Let's move on with our science critic. Okay, this is what he had to say specifically about energy. What is energy? Is energy a thing? And if it's not, can a thing contain energy? You know, like you contain a water in a bucket or something like that. Is that what energy is? Something that you can hold and contain? That's going to be the issue. Okay, this is what he had to say, and this is what is at stake. Okay. Yeah, Planar Walk, whatever his name is. I'm going to be addressing issue by issue that he raised. He raised so many issues, and it's really it was in line with what I was going to talk about in science. So I'm going to essentially answer his questions, and by answering his questions, the issues that he raised, I think I'm going to be enlightening people on what the scientific method really is and where the current scientific method taught in schools is irrational. It doesn't conduce to the questions that people ask. People want to know how gravity works. People want to know how magnetism works. And these people are giving us equations and irrational explanations. After 400 years of the so-called, 17th century scientific revolution, in which they changed the Greek scientific method, and they said, no, we're going to be doing math, in other words, measurements and equations, and we're going to do experiments. And it turns out with all that, we ended up with irrational explanations in physics, in so-called mathematical physics, in the establishment. So that's what we're criticizing, and we're saying that mathematical method, as we call it, or mathemagical method, has no validity whatsoever. It doesn't answer the questions we're seeking. Okay, so here, let's run with the science critic. Let's see what he had to say. The questions and issues addressed in this rebuttal include: is energy a thing? If not, does it make sense in physics to say that an object can contain energy?
Energy is not just capacity. Energy is the capacity to do work. And because a lot of things do have the capacity to do work, that would make them contain energy. Now, I don't think I've ever heard anyone define energy as a substance. I've usually heard it in reference to being contained by something.
The issue is whether energy is a physical object, and the question is whether, if it's not a physical object, can something contain energy? In other words, if energy is a concept, right? Can you contain a concept for the purposes of physics? This is what I'm going to raise against this issue that these people raised. Energy is defined as the capacity. And in fact, this gentleman defined it as the capacity. Okay? Blah, 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 blah. We don't care what comes after the word capacity because it's irrelevant. Capacity is what energy is defined as, and capacity is a concept. Okay? So this is the issue. Capacity is not a physical object. In other words, it's not a thing, it's not a substance, it's not a something. Okay? Capacity, the maximum amount. In other words, capacity is defined as an amount. Okay? Capacity is a concept, and that's what energy is, a concept. Okay? So energy is not a physical standalone object. You can't draw a picture of energy. You cannot take a snapshot of energy. You cannot show me in a picture what energy is. All what's, when you say what is this, what is that, what is a table, what is a tree, you should be able to draw it. That's the answer to a what question. You can't say what is love, not in science, not in physics, because love is not a what. Okay? You can define the word love, but you can't say what is love. That's the issue. Okay? And that's when we confuse ordinary speech with scientific language, especially the language of physics. Physics, the nouns have to be physical objects, things. That which has shape, not that which you can define, right? Okay, so here we have a synthesis of a problem. In physics, contain is a physical word. When you say that you contain something, you cannot contain a concept. You cannot say the brain contains the mind, for example. Mind is a concept. You can't say brain contains mind. Okay, you can say brain contains cells, anything you want, something that is physical. Okay, it contains atoms, okay, molecules, but you can't say it contains mind. And here's an example. You can say, in ordinary speech, you can say, I have a headache. Okay? Headache is a concept, not a physical object. You can't draw a picture of a headache. You can't hold it in your hands. Okay? You can have a dime, like a dime in your pocket. Okay? So there's a difference between having a headache and having a dime. having a concept and having an object. Okay? You can say that you can contain water, which is a thing. You cannot say that you can contain love or intelligence, that the brain contains intelligence. You can't say something like that in physics for the purposes of physics. Okay? So, if energy is not a thing, then energy cannot be contained. And this is where the problem really comes in here. Okay? This fellow is saying energy is equal to capacity. This is his reasoning, his line of reasoning. Okay? He says energy is the capacity. Okay? Okay, and so he says things have the capacity. He uses the word have, the verb have, which he takes from ordinary speech. He doesn't realize that he's introducing a language of ordinary speech suddenly into physics. He's saying things have the capacity. Okay, this is an irrational statement in physics. Okay, so then since he equated energy with capacity, he says things have, in other words, contain energy. Suddenly, he's now containing a concept called energy, okay? And he reinforces that by saying energy is contained by things, but it's irrational in physics to have a concept, to contain a concept. This is where he made his error, okay? And this is the same error the establishment makes and everybody out there makes, because they introduce language of ordinary speech using have and contain, touch, see, and they're talking about concepts, okay? And so this is where the problem is. Okay, so keep that in mind whenever you use language. Here we are correcting the language of physics, and we hope that people do not confuse ordinary speech with scientific language.